Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings defense picks for Week 10 of the NFL season. There's 4 teams that we're going to be discussing. All 4 of them are at home. All 4 of them are in good spots, and we think all 4 of them are teams that you can look to roll out here. So let's call up the slideshow and get right into it. The 4 defenses that we're going to be looking at this week, we're going to start with the Denver Broncos, who are $3,000. They're favored by 6.5 points this week in a game with a 42 total. They're at home where they're undefeated so far in 2015. They're averaging 15 fantasy points a game, and the lowest score they put up all year was a 7, which was last week. So this is a defense that has a very safe floor and a pretty high ceiling for you. Getting 15 points out of a defense is like having a, third running back 2 or a, third wide receiver 3 in your lineup. So it's definitely a huge boost if you can get the points that this team has been scoring. They have 30 sacks already on the season and 17 takeaways in only 8 games. So they're averaging about 3.5 sacks, a little bit over 3.5 sacks, and are getting at least 2 takeaways a game so far. Kansas City's offense has the 9th fewest yards per game so far this season. So we think that Denver's in a good spot to shut them down and come up with a big upside game today. I think that price is actually wrong that we have listed there. It's actually $3,400 on the Broncos this week. But the extra $400 isn't going to make a difference. We still think you should be rolling them out this week. The next team we're going to talk about is the Green Bay Packers, who are at $3,200. They're the biggest favorite this week at -11. They are at home as well, and they play Detroit, who has the 3rd fewest points scored so far in 2015. Stafford has already thrown 11 interceptions as a quarterback, and this Green Bay defense is averaging 3 sacks and 1.5 takeaways per game. In a game where they're expected to have a lead, be able to pin their ears back and go after the quarterback, we think they could definitely come up with a takeaway or 2 here, and also should rack up a few sacks as Detroit has to be one-dimensional and throw the ball to try to keep up at the end of the game. The Packers are also a much better team at home, so we really think this is a good spot for them. The next team we're going to talk about is the Cincinnati Bengals. They're the 2nd biggest favorite this week at -10, also at home, going up against Houston, who's in the bottom 3rd for points scored so far in 2015. This Bengals defense is averaging 3 sacks and 1.5 takeaways per game, and they're only allowing 16.3 points per game. So this is a defense that's been really solid and really shutting people down. Cincy is very good against the pass, which is how Houston is going to try to move the ball against them. With Arian Foster out, Houston's run game is a little bit of a mess. So if Houston's going to go back to throwing the ball 40 or 50 times, I don't think they're going to find a ton of success trying to do that against the Cincinnati Bengals. Sure, they may complete some passes and get some yards, but at some point, Cincinnati's going to create a turnover and probably wind up with a couple sacks if they're forcing Houston to throw that often. All those things are going to add up, along with the low point total that they usually allow, to give Cincy a nice floor and a decent chance for an upside ceiling in this matchup. The last defense that we're going to talk about is the St. Louis Rams at $3,600. The Rams are at home this week, where they have been very, very good over the last 2 years. They're favored by 8 points in a game with a 43 over-under, and they're averaging 4.5 sacks, 1.5 takeaways, and only 12 points allowed in their home games so far this year. The likely game flow for the St. Louis team is run the ball, get a lead, and then when they have the lead, be able to pin their ears back on defense and go after the quarterback. Jay Cutler is a quarterback who's kind of turnover prone, so this is exactly the situation that we want to see for the St. Louis Rams defense, and it looks like the likely game flow situation for him. Chicago has scored the 2nd fewest points so far of any team this season, which also gives the Rams a nice floor, as they should be able to keep the score low in this game and pick up some bonus points that way as well. And that pretty much sums it up for the 4 defenses who we're looking at to use this week. There's a lot of options this week in fantasy, but we do have a lot of good defenses. With all the prices being pretty close on the DraftKings score sheet, we're going to try to pay up and take a defense that can really get us a double-digit score. It's such a huge boost to your lineup when you can get 10, 15 points out of your defense, and other people are only getting 3 or 4 points out of theirs. If we can get 10 or 15 points out of some of the defenses that we talked about here for a solid price, we're going to be able to build some really good rosters around them and hopefully wind up in the money at the end of the week. So thank you guys for joining us here for our DraftKings defense video. And as always, stay classy, DFS.